everyone. I'm very happy to be here. And the pressure is high, of course, because we all know what we miss outside. So I really hope that you can leave today my conversation with, because I created it for students in mind. So if you're not a student, I am sorry, but you might also be able to take something from it. But going back to students, I really wanted to talk about the time that I was in that state of what to do with my life, and also having talked today already to some of you students, especially everyone that is so engaged and being present here today. I'm sure all of you have a lot of idealism. And what I mean with idealism is more our set of beliefs, our vision, how we see the world, and what we truly in our core want to do, and how we think about the world. So how can you turn that into a career? So there was a brief introduction into what I'm doing. So it is connected to forced migration globally. I brought two big numbers with me today, and these numbers are of course changing every day, but for now I took the numbers from the UNHCR. So the first number is that currently 103 million people worldwide are forcibly displaced. When I started with the organization that I'm currently running, it was around 70 million, which was 5 years ago. So it's a very big number, it's a devastating number, and it's growing rapidly. And we had already a talk today about how climate change also impacts this number. So there are different big numbers on this topic of how climate change will impact forced migration, but it is expected that by 2050 we have roughly 1 billion forced migrants because of climate change alone. So this is one of the biggest issues, topics, and I think we all have been faced with it one way or another. And I will share a bit now about my own story and how that migration, forced migration globally came into my life. So, I'm originally from Luxembourg. You might have been wondering, what is this accent? It's not German, it's Luxembourgish. And yes, that is an official language. I am brought up in Luxembourg and I lived there for the first 19 years of my life. I loved it, especially with 16, 17, 18, 19, because it's so small. I was allowed to do a lot, always be out and about, but it's also very small. So it's a tiny little country in the heart of Europe, connecting Belgium, Germany, and France. And I spent most of my life there, in a village. I was part of the Scouts, so I went a lot into the forest. And all this big world stuff, I was so disconnected from it. Like, literally, I felt like I was living on this little island and nothing bad could happen. And of course, that is a very privileged way of growing up, but it's also a way of how you might become very detached from a lot of things. When I was about to decide which university to go to, I had no idea what to do. And one afternoon, I was sitting in the library in my high school, and a professor approached me, and he said, "You know what, Laura, you should study business. I would really see you studying business," which doesn't mean that much. I don't know if there are people here that study business, but it's a very broad topic. So that night, I went home, and I started Googling business schools, and then I saw these huge tuition fees, and I thought to myself, oh my God, I cannot do that to my parents, to ask them to pay for me like 60K per year. I don't even know if I want to do this. This might also be that resonates with a couple of people here. So then I Googled best business school for lowest tuition fees, and the Rotterdam School of Management popped up. And that's where I ended up studying, actually. So we have a beautiful picture here of the library in Rotterdam where I spent a lot of time, because coming from Luxembourg, we first, in my case, I learned Luxembourgish, and then when we go to school, we learn German, French, and English only at a very late age, so when we are well in our teenage years. So then studying completely everything in English in the Netherlands, it was really tough. So I spent a lot of hours in this library. And also, I think this was for the first time, and this sounds now really boohoo, first world problems, but this was for the first time that I actually had to work for something, to not be kicked out of university after my first trimester. So all of that happened in Rotterdam. And I'm a big people's person. Also just giving this talk, but not being able to have a conversation, it's really hard for me. So what I did discover in Rotterdam was, first of all, the command of the English language, and second of all, really, really good friends. And because of these friends, I also stayed in Rotterdam for my bachelor's, for my master's, also did a master's in business because, you know, you can do everything with that. And while writing my master thesis I was dead set on writing it that trade is better than aid when talking about economies in development. So while I was writing that, I knew that this deadline would come of where I had to decide what I want to do with my life. And my parents, being from Luxembourg and being very strict and old school, they were like, okay, you study university, you're going to start working. So this deadline was approaching. And I got really antsy, and I applied, and I checked the number of the different applications that I did. I applied for over 26 different jobs, and I was just all over the place. I didn't know what to do, how to do it, but I just wanted to have something when that deadline came in of having to submit my thesis, and the next day I wanted to start working. So one night I'm sitting in this library writing on my thesis, and I get a WhatsApp message from a guy that we always called the ghost of our studies, because he never showed up to lectures really, and he was not really a part of our community because he lived in Amsterdam. And in that text he was asking, hey, we need last minute a volunteer. I'm hosting a startup weekend for people with a refugee background. And we need people that can just help cook, clean, you know, do the entire operations. So I was like, okay, let me do this. And sure enough, I participated in that weekend of 3 days where I was just supposed to volunteer. And a long story short, today I'm still working for the same organization, 5 years in, and it just started at this little volunteering gig. And what was so beautiful about being part of that very, very tiny young organization back then with absolutely no budget, we had maybe for that first startup weekend, we raised €5,000 with a crowdfunding campaign, but that was it. I started my internship, and my university actually also accepted this as my graduating internship, so I was really happy. My parents, maybe not so much. They were like, okay, what is she doing? But then we started working, and it was so, so nice, because I kind of unprogrammed myself from studying, right? And I was in this very competitive business school environment, you know, always comparing grades and your averages, and it was really like, who has, you know, the best internship? What are you doing? Oh, you do 3 extracurricular activities. Oh, I just go to the gym, you know? It was insanely competitive. And then starting to work there, I kind of unlearned all of these things. And just working with people with a refugee background, it really centered me. And I really stopped obsessing about all the stuff that at the end of the day, like, it just really does not matter, at least in my case. And also, what I kind of realized is that when you're in your early 20s, and I'm just talking from my own experience, but I see it a lot, in your early 20s, I really feel that a lot of people think that they have it figured out. And they tend to talk in, like, facts, in absolutes, right? Even though it's just their opinion. And this is something that I really learned working with people truly from all over the world, from all different backgrounds, that at the end of the day, none of us has the facts, you know? It doesn't exist, and my personal experience, I can never compare it to someone else's. And I'm very, very grateful. So I did my internship there for 4 months, and then I was supposed to leave to start working in Berlin. But one night, I was biking through Vondelpark like today. The sun was shining. It was one of the best days. And I just sat down for a moment, and I took the decision, and I was just like, you know, let's just do it. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to make this an organization. I'm going to make this a career, and I'm going to build something that I truly believe in, that connects with my ideals. And my ideals have been, back then, and have always been very engaged on that topic, that every single human being deserves, of course, safety and food and shelter. But I think what is even more important is also opportunities and the hope to believe again in your dreams. And I think that's sometimes not talked about in this entire refugee debate. And I know when we talk about needs of people, of course, food and shelter is the most important, but you also need to give people something to believe in. And that is so crucial. If you don't have purpose in the morning to get out of bed, why even bother? So that day sitting there, I was just like, okay, I'm gonna stay here, you know? This is what I want to do. I want to contribute in a way to this global crisis. And I know I'm just a one-woman show. Back then, we were a team of 4. And also, I know that what we do with the organization that I'm running, you know, it's kind of the top of the pyramid of needs, if you want, right? It's about self-actualization. It's about giving people the tools to help themselves again, about self-reliance. But that really drives me. So just if all of you are maybe thinking about what you want to do with your life, I would really go inside yourself and think about what drives you. Because that is, at the end of the day, the most powerful thing that you're having, is your internal drive. And that's not motivation, right? Because motivation goes up and down. But if you are connected to your internal drive and you do something every single day that ties into that, it is really, really powerful. So my drive personally, also if you heard it a bit maybe in the beginning of this story, my entire life was a bit driven by my teachers, my parents, my boyfriends, my friends, and I was just going, you know, along for the ride, very happy camper. But then when I started with the organization, I really realized that what truly drives me is people. And I love people so much, and it is, you know, our world is at times an absolute shit show, and if we look at how certain things are going, it's incredibly depressing. But what I really understood at Forward is that at the end of the day, you can also create a bit your own reality. And that doesn't make everything perfect, but you can be a teeny tiny part of a solution, instead of just giving up and being, okay, I'm now doing this for the rest of my life. So all types of people that I have met over the past 5 years, and also just, you know, I started right out of university, I had no training, I didn't know what I was doing, I didn't study entrepreneurship, and I think also that is maybe just nice to know for everyone. Like, at the end of the day, your studies are not that important. I mean, I'm now 5 years into working, I have not told someone my grades in like forever. No one truly cares. It's just about, once you're in the workforce, it's about what you can deliver. So the why is, of course, a really, really big question. And the why of what we do is that we want to give people opportunities. And what I think is really special about Forward is that our beliefs, right, our idealism, the things that every single day we believe in, we might not execute them. And Forward is a way where your beliefs and ideas are turned into action. Because I'm a big believer of that your thoughts and everything that, you know, goes on in your head, it doesn't mean that much if you don't do something with it, right? So that's something that I'm very passionate about in Forward, and also working with a lot of university students. Like, stop thinking so much and start doing. Because this is how you leave a legacy. And at the end of the day, that's how you create impact, right? So what I also see working with so many different people from all over the place is that diversity truly works. So this is also a concept at university. We were told all the time, diversity matters, diversity is very important, but at the end of the day, we were all from a certain social class, from a certain background. Now, working with people from all over the world, you really see how different types of people have a completely different sense of reality. And what I always say to the team is, you need to make the implicit explicit, because we all have completely different assumptions. So that's really one big learning. And the impact that we create so far is, of course, something that we are very proud of. But these are the hard numbers. Of course, I think I'm way more proud of all these connections that we created over time. But soon enough, we will celebrate that we have supported 1,000 newcomers, of which we are extremely proud. Diving into the details is the topic of today, so I also just wanted to show this, which is that not all of the entrepreneurs that we work with will be successful, right? And I think that's also something that I often see with students, also the student consultants that work with us. They're very strict. Okay, we need to achieve this. We have 4 months. We need to do this, 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 this. And sometimes it just doesn't work, and that's okay, you know? And also this is something I think with age, you just accept that not everything will be perfect. Yes, so my call to action to all of you, what can you do? I would just really hope that you being, you know, brilliant people, students with strong beliefs, with ideas about the world, that you put those into actions and that you don't just sit, you know, and think, because I feel that at the end of the day, that leading by action, that's what creates the impact. Thank you.